Hello, my precious friends. How are you today? I'm Red. And today I'm going to be reading some r/entitled people. Alright, let's get into this. Half-sister claimed she had no other dress to wear but her own wedding dress. I've been stewing on this story for a few years now and decided it was finally time to voice it out. This happened back in the beginning of 2017. Back in 2016, my brother announced that he and his girlfriend of many years were engaged and were planning on having a wedding the following year. They gave 9 months notice, at least, to people who would be invited and also told what colour the theme for the wedding would be: purple. In that time between the announcement and the wedding date, I was easily able to order a dress from an online retailer in London and have it sent to me, and still had time to replace it if I needed. I did not. 2017 comes and the wedding weekend has arrived. I live in a different state to my brother, as my mum and I moved from our hometown back in 2013, so we both had to travel across the ocean back to the mainland to attend the wedding. The wedding was absolutely gorgeous. Sunny day on the beach. I couldn't help but cry because my brother was actually marrying the mother of his children and the love of his life. He'd never seemed happier. John, my brother, and Jane, his fiancée, had 3 kids together already, and the older 2 were flower girls, which was sweet. Now, John is technically only my half-brother. We share a mum, but not a dad, yet growing up, my dad raised John and I, so to him, my dad was his dad. My dad, prior to marrying my mum, had a first wife and a couple of kids with that wife, including Susan. John and I have always had some issues with Susan. She was only my half-sister, not John's, but he still included her in the wedding as a family member and guest. I hadn't noticed at the time, as I was too caught up in the whirlwind of my brother's wedding ceremony, but Susan wasn't wearing purple. No, she was wearing white. To be specific, she was wearing her white wedding dress to someone else's wedding. John and Jane were pissed. Especially Jane. Cue reception. Some people have changed clothes. It was my first ever wedding, so I didn't think that far ahead and still wore my soft lilac dress without a problem while everyone ate and shared some drinks, interacted with the bride and groom. What I assumed to be normal wedding things. But Susan. Oh, Susan. She was feeling extremely sad and lonely because no one was paying attention to her. The 30-plus-year-old woman who wore her own wedding dress to someone else's wedding. I wonder why no one wanted to interact with her. Susan began crying maybe halfway through the reception. Openly, loudly, and in a way that clearly begged for someone to come notice her. I'm a nice person, so I tried to be the good half-sister I should be and bit the bullet to go sit with her for a little while and ask her what's wrong. No one is paying attention to me. What do you mean? Everyone is talking with John and Jane, but no one is talking to me. And when I try to speak with John and Jane, they don't talk to me. I sighed internally and couldn't help but wonder how she didn't connect the dots. Susan, it's their wedding. Of course everyone's going to be talking to them and they're going to be busy. I don't care. I'm John's sister, so he should talk with me more. Actually, lady, you're not his sister. I am. But okay, whatever. I was able to slip away and spend time with some other family who weren't acting as if this day was all about them. After the ceremony, Jane admitted to me she was livid about how Susan wore the wedding dress. She had plenty of time to plan for the wedding and get appropriate attire, but when finally confronted, Susan said she'd had no other dress she could wear. This is perhaps a boring tale to most, but even 3, nearly 4 years later, I'm still pissed at my half-sister for doing that. My mum, John, and Jane are also pissed about it still. I've since cut contact with Susan. Her and I never had a good bond anyway, and as far as I could see it, we just shared a dad, and I almost never had to deal with my dad's previous family. As far as I know, John and Jane have limited contact with her, but that can't be helped, as they live in the same city as her now, while I happily live in a place where an ocean is between me and her. I had a chance to speak to my mum about Dad's previous marriage, as I had some comments expressing concern that my dad's lack of commitment to his other kids was of concern. And here's what I found out. My dad was baby-trapped into the marriage by his first wife. When she fell pregnant, my dad stepped up and did what, at the time, was appropriate and married her as he believed the child was his, and the first wife said it was his baby. After the baby was born, she admitted the son was not my dad's. Despite the son not being dad's, he stayed with his first wife to raise the child still. First wife then falls pregnant with the second child. This one is Susan. Susan is my dad's. First wife had a nasty habit of abandoning my dad and the kids for days and weeks at a time without saying anything. This left Dad to look after both babies alone until she came back. I believe this was some of her affair habits. On a random night, first wife actually packed all her things and the kids' things before taking both son and Susan, leaving my dad, who woke the next day to the aftermath of first wife's leaving. It was first wife who disassociated from my dad for no actual reason. My mum told me that Dad had no choice but to give up rights to the son and Susan because the first wife wouldn't let him interact with them at all, nor herself. Please note, my dad was not abusive to her in any way. Rather, the first wife was the violent one, and Mum explained that there was something wrong with her mentally, but she never sought help. There was a period of time after my dad married my mum and after I was born that first wife was entirely out of control, that Dad took in both the son and Susan to live with us for a few months. But the son was a violent child. Susan wasn't any better, and both my parents had to contact child welfare after an incident where my brother was taken to the hospital because son had cracked his head open and John needed stitches. Because first wife's son was a clear danger to myself and John, it was decided Dad and Mum couldn't keep looking after them. There were multiple affairs first wife had while married to my dad, including a third child that wasn't my dad's, but his best friend's. First wife also had another 2 children after the divorce and tried to claim my dad was the father, even though this was after my dad had married my mum. Oh my God. DNA tests were done on all of the children. Only Susan, the second born, was my dad's child. First wife is also an extreme narcissist, which could explain Susan's behavior. Oh my God, what a messed up family. I don't want to say that excuses Susan's behavior though, because even if she has some sort of behavioral issue, there are plenty of ways to get help with that. But I guess you have to realize you need help before you can get help. Don't be an entitled person. Like this video. Okay, here is our next story. Sister-in-law steals my niece's Christmas gift for charity. I have a 7-year-old niece who wants to be a police officer like her dad when she grows up and loves the color pink. The more sickly sweet pink, the better. She's a sweet kid that doesn't ask for much. I like to knit and crochet during the year, then I give the scarves and hats I make to my aunt's church who organises Christmas parties for really low-income families. I'm talking about people with children who can barely afford a coat. This party is filled with games and activities for the children. It's amazing since the church is very active in the community and has managed to get sponsors from big supermarkets who offer whole turkeys and lots of food for the parents, on top of quality gifts for the children. I love helping my aunt during this time by giving my time and knitting stuff for those less fortunate. My brother recently started dating this girl, and to be kind and honest, I don't like her. She has trouble understanding personal space, privacy of others, or boundaries. She will insist that you tell her all about private affairs that you don't want to talk about and will make it her business. She's been constantly trying to get me to date her friends that I'm not interested in. At one point, she thought I was a lesbian because I didn't like any of the guys she wanted to set me up with. When my aunt talked about the church's plan to still offer help during Christmas despite COVID, I told her that I had lots of scarves and hats to give at home. My aunt was delighted and asked me to bring them to her as soon as possible. I agreed. However, the day I wanted to bring them to her, I was called to come into the office to replace a colleague. My work is in reduced workload. I asked my sister-in-law if she could pick up the bag with the scarves and the hat that was sitting on top of my stairs. not in my living room. As I said, my niece loves the colour pink and she asked me to make her a neon hot pink hat and scarf with a white heart. I agreed and had just finished them both and left them in a drawer in my living room. I was planning to wrap them up and give them to my sister later on. Fast forward to this evening, I come home exhausted. I noticed my sister-in-law had come by and taken the bag. Oh great, I thought. It reminded me of my niece's gifts. However, when I came to get them, they were gone. I checked everywhere for them, thinking I had misplaced them. Then it hit me. Maybe I'd put them in the bag by mistake. I immediately called my aunt, but she didn't find them. There was no neon hot pink scarf or hat with a white heart. I called my sister-in-law in a panic. She picks up and tells me that she had seen the scarf and hat. Oh, thank God, right? Nope. Turns out that dear witch-in-law decided that I hadn't given enough for charity, so she decided to snoop around my house and find some more. She took 4 other scarves and hats that were for other people, my niece's gift, and decided to rearrange my drawers because they were not clean and organized. I put my anger on the back burner for a while because my niece's gift was more important for now. When I asked her what happened to it, she responded that she had taken it and given it to her niece because her sister was in need. To say that I was offended and pissed is like saying that fire burns. I proceeded to lose my mind at her. How dare she? She goes through my stuff, takes my belongings, gives away my gift for my niece, and then has the gall to lecture me on how I should be happy that I helped a spoiled brat who has 2 parents making 7 figures a year. I told her that if the scarf and hat weren't in my possession by tomorrow night, I was going to sue the crap out of her. She scoffed and hung up. I called everyone in my family, especially my brother. 20 minutes ago, my sister-in-law brought me the scarf and hat back and apologized. She was in tears, begging me not to involve my cop of a brother-in-law. My brother-in-law, bless his heart, had swung by her house and had threatened to have her arrested for theft. I just took my stuff back, thanked her for doing the right thing, and closed the door on her. I was so angry at her that I was numb inside. My niece will have her gift. My aunt has the knitted stuff I made for her church, and my brother is now single. What a day. Oh my God, what an invasion of privacy. I mean, I knit, so I know how long it takes to make some of these things and how much love goes into knitting things. I would be so angry. Oh, I would be so angry. What a horrible, horrible entitled woman. Some people really suck. I hope you enjoyed those r/entitled people stories read by me, Red. If you did, or even if you had any sort of reaction at all to them, please give the video a like, and please subscribe as well if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching today.